Okay, folks, we are live. So for those listening at home, welcome to the Dungeon Musings YouTube channel. My name is Kevin Madison, and I will be your friendly keeper, a keeper of lore, because today we are we're carrying on, I guess, with a series of short adventures drawn from a product called Gateways to Terror, published for Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. That is the game we are playing tonight. This session is called The Dead Border, and it is part of, like I said, it's part of this Gateways to Terror 3 adventure product. So if you are intending on playing Gateways to Terror and you want to avoid any of the 3 adventures that are in there and you want to avoid spoilers, definitely don't watch this session until after you have played it yourself. If you don't care about the spoilers from it, or if you're intending on running it yourself, well then welcome. Let me introduce you to the star of tonight's Tale of Terror. That is Jeffrey.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeff, and I'm going to be playing Eloise. And you want me to read her bio now?
Yeah, well, we'll do that in just a second here.
Okay.
What I want to do for the first, just to frame things, is so last week we ran 2 of the adventures out of this thing. One and other 2 players, we had Graham and Dave playing. Graham had played a lot of BRP stuff back in the day and Cthulhu back in the day, but wasn't really a super fan of the Lovecraft mythos, and Dave had never played before. And I think we talked a bit before we went live. You've played a couple of sessions of Pulp Cthulhu with us in the Night Below group. But other than that, you've never played Call of Cthulhu before, right?
No, I have not.
Okay. Dan, the one thing I'll mention is just that, like a lot of the... Well, I mean, like any other kind of investigative adventure that we run, the way that you sort of interact with a story in a Call of Cthulhu adventure is a little different than how we normally, how you would normally play in like AD&D or, Castle and Crusades or Pathfinder. The game is largely a matter of like looking for ways that the atmospheric storytelling can help you figure out what is going on in the game. So you're looking for clues, you're looking for things to try and give you better context, because that's how you, how you progress through the story and how you learn about what's going on is by interacting with the environment in a more specific way than some of the story-based games that we've played in the past. It is a... I mean, generally speaking, like there's not going to be any hidden clues behind dice rolls. Dice rolls will often give you more information than you would if you just try something. But I mean, like if you look for something, or try and study something, I might ask you to make a spot hidden check, and the results of that will dictate how much of what you learn. But critical clues and such are never hidden behind a dice roll. Okay, so long as you're interacting with the environment, you're going to get some reward for that, and you might get better if it happens to be something you're quite good at, or if you're lucky on your dice roll. Task resolution in this is rolling a D100 and rolling under, and then effects is often another kind of dice, whether it's a D8 or D4 or D6. We talked about luck beforehand as well. The other signature element of a Call of Cthulhu adventure is sanity. Sanity is a sort of a measure of your mental stability. And when you lose you lose sanity over the course of investigations as you were exposed to awful things. And if you ever find that you lose 5 or more at one time, then something interesting might happen. It doesn't mean if you lose like 3 and then you lose 3 more, that doesn't trigger a temporary or a moment of insanity. It's when you lose 5 or more all at once. Okay. And the sanity stat is one of the things that has a bit of a death spiral mechanic to it, where it's also the number you're rolling against when you're trying to make or trying to make your sanity checks. So as you lose more sanity, you're more prone to losing bigger chunks of sanity.
Right.
Okay. That is, I mean, that's the game. That's what, Call of Cthulhu has been since its original publication in the 80s, and this is what it continues to be. Let's talk about your character. So the character that you're playing tonight is one of the pre-gen characters from the adventure. Each of the 3 adventures in this volume has a selection of pre-gen characters with it, and the neat thing is it also gives you guidance on kind of like which ones are key. So if you're running for 1 person, if you're running for 3 people, if you're running up to 4, or if you're creating your own investigators, they give you guidelines for sort of how to select between the characters. So I love, which means it's very easy to pick up and run one of these adventures with limited or 0 prep. But speaking of your pre-gens, Jeff, why don't we talk about, by we I mean you, why don't you tell us about Eloise?
Sure. I live in Providence, Rhode Island, in Mawshank's boarding house, a 3-story building where I run things on behalf of Mawshanks, the elderly owner of the property. I am widowed, and now it's just me and my 11-year-old son, Tommy.
There you go, little postcard from Providence for you.
Very nice. Whom I love very much. Because I lost my own spouse, I sympathize with Mrs. Madeira, who lives across the hall from another of my tenants, Mr. Gardner. Her husband was killed in an industrial accident last March. I know all of the other tenants in the building to different degrees: the bookstore owner, the business associate, and the nosy neighbor, as well as the Scrigilia family, a Lithuanian brother and sister who are, for the most part, hard workers with jobs in the city. Now, I wish to fall in love again, and perhaps I have. James Gardner, Mrs. Madeira's neighbor, has lived in the boarding house for around 2 years. He has utterly captured my heart. True, he has not acted to reciprocate my love, but deep down, I know that somehow he loves me. I'm the only one in the boarding house that he spends time with, and the only one he talks to, even if our talks are very rare. Should anything happen to your adored tenant, I would rain down vengeance on that person. No one would escape my wrath if he were slighted or injured. I would do anything within my power to seek that person out for special punishment.
Nice. All
Strangely,
right.
Oh wait, there's a little bit more.
More.
Strangely, James has not been seen for 2 days. Although that's not unusual, he prefers to work and he makes his own meals in his room. But despite my knocking, there's been no answer at his door. I am getting concerned, and some of the other tenants appear to want to talk to James, too. So I've agreed to unlock the door to his room to check that he's okay.
So here's a couple other little things to set our tone here. This is for Waybosset Street in Providence, contemporaneous with our adventure. And let's see here. I believe this might be.
I chose an image that looked like it could fit on either of these postcards.
Oh, totally, yeah. There's some more stuff in there, and there we go. This is Ma's boarding house. Give you a sense what the interior looks like there.
Very typical.
So, this adventure starts with our favorite thing, block text. So, the year is 1931. You live in Providence, Rhode Island, in Ma Shanks's boarding house. Times are tough. The Great Depression means that immigrants and longtime residents, including you, are experiencing hard times. So here is hard times. Each of you, you have a reason to be to see. What is this? No, Mr. James Gardner, a recluse who lives in your building, has not been seen or heard from in 2 days. Each of you has a reason to see if he's in his room, or you have a reason to see if he's in his room. But through persuasion, bribes, or your own means, the landlord of the boarding house, so yourself, I suppose, has been finally convinced. I'll tell you that the person who has been really pushing for this is actually a bookseller who lives in the building named Arthur O'Reilly. Mr. O'Reilly claims to have loaned Mr. Gardner a book, something valuable and rare, and he would like it returned. So
he's the one pushing me to go in.
He in particular, although it seems like there are a couple of others who may have been asking about him as well. Let's see here. It is, you've got a nosy neighbor who really just wants to find out what Gardner's been up to in his room. He has mentioned that late at night he's heard him reciting some odd-sounding poetry before going to bed. The poetry's not in English, so he was curious what's he doing in there. The business associate has asked... Let's see here. He seems a little... Well, let's do this, actually. Why don't you give us I think it's psychology check. Let's see what kind of read you got on the business associate.
Okay.
It's got some subcategories in
there. There it is. Yeah,
okay, got it.
I think I found it.
Yes, it is. All the skills
and what do I click on to roll it?
I think you just click on...
you click on it, and then... Is there a roll? Oh, hold on. Wait. You know why? It's because I'm in edit mode. Let me just turn off edit mode.
There we go.
There we go. Now I can roll on it. Nope.
Okay, so those are...
okay.
Failure with psychology. All right. So there are a couple of other neat game mechanics that are in here. I don't know if it was in 6th edition, but it's certainly in 7th edition. One of them is this thing called bonus and penalty. Basically, it's like the D20 or D100 version of advantage. If you've got a bonus or a penalty, you're going to roll at least one. You may have multiple extra D10s you roll, and they can take the place of the tens digit. If it's a bonus, you take the better of the two. If it is a penalty, you take the worse of the two. In this case, I think we can also click on bonus penalty. Let's let you roll. You had a chance, ample opportunity to be around this person. So the one, but your psychology is a 10. Is that right? Hold on.
It says 60 now.
Try it again. I think it might have been because it was in... we had this problem with Dave's... Okay, close it down. Close your sheet down and open it up again. We had the problem with Dave's last time.
Okay.
So close the sheet, reopen it again, then try psychology once again.
Okay, there we go.
I think he had the same issue with it last week.
Okay, it says it's a 60.
Okay, so you should have a much better chance of that. There we go. Okay, so this also gave us an opportunity to talk about hard successes. There are different difficulties, and basically it's divisions of your skill. A hard success is half your skill, and extreme success is 1/4 of your skill. The other thing you can do is if you fail something, you can choose to push it. Pushing allows you to roll under the same circumstances again, so if you got bonuses or penalties, you roll again. But if you fail a second time, that means something bad happens. You're running the risk of something catastrophic happening to you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a really fun mechanic, especially when you're in trouble. it can lead to some really amusing results from it. The one who says that he is Mr. Gardner's business associate, this fellow, his name is Philip, and he never quite got his last name. He seems pretty sketchy, but he has also been inquiring about the status of Mr. Gardner.
And he doesn't live here. He's just come by.
He lives there as well.
He does live here. Okay.
Yeah, the ones who are not around are Philip, the business associate, and the nosy neighbor. I imagine you may have picked a time to try and open Mr. Gardner's door when the nosy neighbor isn't around, because he'll be kind of poking around.
He's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, and I think so where our adventure will open up, the scene will be with you sort of finishing getting things ready for getting Tommy ready for the day, as it were, and you hear kind of an excitable knock at your door.
Hello, and I'll walk over.
And you say, Mrs. Gardner, it's Arthur O'Reilly.
Oh, yes. Good morning, Arthur.
Are you still intending on going to Mr. Gardner's room today?
Yes, I am. Very shortly, actually.
Okay. I'll wait in the hall for you then.
Yes, sure. I'll be but a moment.
Okay. So
she's gonna go to the bathroom and like apply some lipstick and fix her hair and such.
Okay. So you get yourself ready to see Mr. Gardner. And yeah, whenever you are ready, you can throw the door open.
Yeah. So I'll get the master key. It's probably hanging somewhere, on a hook in my room.
Yeah.
I'll take it down.
Okay.
And head out to meet Arthur.
Okay. So you throw the door open, and you see that he is there with his little cap in his hand, kind of like worriedly, moving it back and forth. He's got a tweed suit on. You certainly, are taller than this gentleman. He probably stands about 5'3".
Is he the bookseller?
He's the bookseller, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's got a string tie, not a string tie, like a bow tie around his neck, but the way it sort of is limp, you think that like no one's starched that thing in quite some time.
Yeah.
And he kind of looks up at you. Oh, good morning. And Eloise, what is your last name?
Oh, let's say it's Jones.
Okay. Mrs. Jones? Good morning.
Good morning.
And he kind of pokes his head in. Good morning, Tommy. And Tommy kind of, waves from the table. Are you ready?
Yes. Tommy, stay here in the room while I'm gone.
Okay. So you head down one flight of stairs to where Mr. Gardner has been staying. And you get the room key, your duplicate for Mr. Gardner's. You got like a ring of keys, each of which is for, the different room. If you knock once more to confirm that there's no one,
right,
in there. Let me just double check something here.
Maybe I'll do a fairly loud knock.
Okay.
Sorry, what's his last name? James what?
Gardner?
Oh, Gardner. Yeah. Mr. Gardner, and she'll say it fairly loud, and
you can hear
quite a loud bang
creak from the room behind you, and you suspect that it may be Mrs. Madeira in the room across the hall, who may be peeking in. She doesn't open the door, but she is not a svelte woman, so you're fairly certain she's, if you looked behind the eye hole, you could see that she is standing there and seeing what's going on in the hallway. There's no response from within, but what I was looking for is, let's check one thing here.
I wasn't expecting a response. It's the polite thing to do before you open his door.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's see here.
Oh, I like the footsteps in the music.
It's pretty great too. Would you give us a spot hidden check, please?
Yeah.
And I can't remember if this is...
Let's
see here. Pretty good. Okay. Then... Yeah. As you're there, we cannot hear anything within, but there's a faint scent of some kind of like odored candles of some kind of like almost a spicy or some kind of herb like aroma to them. It's faint. Mr. O'Reilly kind of once again eager to see something happen. Oh, will you be opening the door, ma'am?
Yes. And I'll take out the key, find the right one.
Okay. So you throw the door. A dog barks elsewhere. within the
She
building.
liked your door sound effect.
The door. She's been such a good girl today too. Like, it's been so hot. She's been sleeping for most of the day. So the door creaks open, and from within comes the lingering scent of candles. Much stronger in here, sickly sweet, and then there's something else carried on them, something sickly sweet and copper-like. Looking in, you see a shocking scene. Framed in the shafts of sunlight, streaming through the gaps in the curtain, a body. The corpse is lying on a tarpaulin stretched out on the floor. You can see blood. Such a lot of blood. The man's body and clothing are covered in it. It looks as though he somehow fell over from a kneeling position. The dead man is wearing a green tweed coat and a brown sweater vest. The clothes that Mr. Gardner usually wears. It must be Mr. Gardner. Mr. Gardner's right hand is caked with dried blood. And with that, would you kindly give us a sanity check? I believe this is your first sanity check playing Call of Cthulhu.
Here we go.
Welcome to the club. Let's see.
I was going to say as well, I'll roll this, but I didn't want to interrupt your thing. I would quickly step inside and close the door on Mr. Riley. If you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That would be my reaction to this.
Hard success.
Wow.
Nice. So you do lose 1 point of sanity. You can reduce your remember, but not much. So this is shocking to your system, but not terribly bad. Then, having stepped inside, let's see here. I think what I'll need is actually for you to give us a dexterity check, please.
Yeah.
And I think, let's see how he does. What you do need to do. The way it works in this is you just roll. Whoever gets the better success. Okay, I got a regular success. You get a hard success. Awesome.
Nice.
So you, what do we see is you push your way in and close the door.
Yeah, like I think that like she sees that there's like, as soon as she sees like this is not good, this is not normal, there is something really bad that's gone on here.
Yep.
Because of her feelings for Mr. Gardner, she wants to figure out what happened before it just becomes public, right?
Yeah.
Like if something terrible's happened here or he's committed a crime or, she doesn't want his name to be tarnished, essentially.
For sure. Okay.
And also, as sort of the landlady, I don't want there to be like, oh, there's been a murder in the building to get out or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to protect our good name. So,
okay.
I say, just a moment, like something like that as I close the door on Mr. Riley,
Why don't you give us, let's see here. Because I think he, having seen that himself, let's see how he does in his sanity check, actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much he saw. I mean, you said he is quite a bit smaller than me, so...
Yeah, he succeeded on the sanity check, so he's not freaking out or screaming or fainting or anything.
Right, yeah.
So that's good. Why don't you give us a fast talk check, please?
Yeah. Fast talk. Is that under...
I think it's under... Well, they're alphabetical, except for, like, there are certain kind of categories it goes into.
Oh, there it is. Oh, I'm terrible at fast talk.
Okay.
Like, terrible.
So, you say...
Yeah, like, I try to say, something, and it
Mrs.
just
Jones,
comes out
I
terrible.
don't think it's appropriate being in there alone. Mrs. Jones, and you can hear him, he begins to try and open the door. Yeah, unless you do something.
I'm just gonna say, this is, sorry, I gotta look up the name of the building. Oh, no. What did I click on? Pop out the character sheet.
Mrs.
Hold on, I gotta reopen it. Shanks.
Yep.
Yes. Sorry, I would say. I'm sorry, Mr. Riley. This is Shanks' business. I will look for your book.
So the fast talk tells me that it doesn't succeed, and I think he's going to try and like push the door. So why don't you give us a strength check? This will be contested as well. I don't think I even got a success on mine.
Oh.
So you are stronger. I mean, you've raised a boy on your own for the last couple of years. I think you're, tougher than you look. So this little guy tries to push the door open. You push him back. There isn't a lock on the door, but you could just use the key to lock it from the inside if you choose.
I think I would have a conversation with him here, and it would be like, now, if I let you in here, you have to be sworn to secrecy. You cannot tell any of the other tenants. Only the police if they are involved.
Why don't you give us another fast talk roll, but this time with a bonus. He really wants to get in and get a look, try and find that book, so I think you got a good chance of convincing him. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful. So here's one of the things that you do with, if you're playing in an ongoing game, every one of these things you use, every skill you use, you put a little check mark next to it when you're successful. And then at the end of the game, you'd roll, if you roll over the what your current score is, you get to add a substantial amount. If you rolled under, then I don't think you either don't add anything or you add a minimal amount. So that's the kind of thing that would be like, wow, you're really, you're seeing some success and development of your skill because you got a very unlikely and good success.
Yeah, very unlikely.
So you know what? Roll that bonus dice because you could, if no.
So how does the bonus dice work?
So the bonus dice takes the place. Actually, in this case, it wouldn't make a difference, I guess. Bonus dice takes the place of the tens digit in your roll, and if it's a bonus, it takes the lower of the two, or you take the lower of the two that are rolled. If it's a penalty, you take the higher of the two that are rolled.
Oh, I see. So if it was a penalty, I would have got a 55 instead of a 5.
Precisely. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you hear kind of a deep kind of sigh, and he says, agreed, please.
Okay, then I'll open the door enough for him to come in.
Okay, he comes in,
and then I will close it and lock it with the key.
Okay, so then I'll put a token in for him because I do have,
because honestly I didn't really want to be in the room alone, but I also for all the reasons I said, sort of wanted to control the scene.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that makes sense.
And if this is James, I think I'm a little emotional, and I maybe didn't want him to see that.
Yeah,
because it might implicate me in a strange way, right?
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, let's see here. I'm just giving him visible to everyone. That'll be okay. So there, we've got our bookstore owner in here too. All right. So with the door closed behind you, you guys are standing. Like you can see in this illustration, it's not a very big room. Here's one of the neat things about this that I like, in particular with the way they set it up in Roll20, is there's like clues related to this illustration. So you can look around on here, kind of like, they like spot a difference kind of thing in the Sunday morning papers. It's sort of like that, where you can they do a really nice job of giving you can point at stuff in the map, be like, hey, what's that right there? So with the door closed and locked, the smell of those candles and the incense is much stronger. You can hear Mr. O'Reilly swallow hard, and he says, is he dead?
I think I would now go over and check the body. First, to confirm it's James, and secondly,
sure.
I don't know that I have medicine. I think I would know to check if he's breathing. Like,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't know how to check a pulse, but I think I
Yep.
An average person would be like, are they breathing?
For sure.
Yeah.
So one thing I'll tell you is, as you're going over, as the landlady in here, Mrs. Jones, you are very familiar with sort of taking stock of a room after a boarder has left.
Right.
So at first glance, everything in the room appears to be in order, except for obviously the body on the tarpaulin. There doesn't seem to have been a fight in here. The furniture is upright, and there are no bloody footprints anywhere. The only unusual trappings sit on the floor, in front of the corpse on the tarpaulin, where there is a piece of blood-stained paper that lies between two black candles, which have both burned down to their stubs. Inside the room, going clockwise from the door, there are a wardrobe, a bed, a nightstand with a lamp, an ornate bookcase that divides the room into two living areas, a window and radiator, a small table set in a corner with two chairs and another lamp, a once fancy upholstered chair, and then overhead cabinets built into one of the walls, underneath which is a countertop with an electric hot plate, and then finally another table along the wall to the right of the door. It's large enough for 6 people to move around in, even stepping over a body, but not much bigger than that. So, as you approach the body, why don't you give us a spot hidden roll. See if you notice anything as you're making your way over towards it. Now, I thought I heard you tell me you were taking care to try and study everything as you were going over. Did I hear that, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't you give us a roll of bonus dice then?
Yeah, all right.
Look at that. So, success. So here's the thing. You can tell this is the most obvious stuff first, and then I'll go into the more complicated stuff. There is, or the more nuanced stuff. There is a deep cut, freshly made around the head, as if a knife had traced a spiral from the crown to the neck. His clothes are blood-soaked, and his shirt is unbuttoned. As you get over, you can see that there are strange marks on his chest. The blood is dry, suggesting that this all took place some days ago. You can also see, while his one hand is caked in blood, there are still scarification markings on the back of his hands. And it looks like they actually seem to go up past the cuff of his sleeve. They are shaped like small spirals. And if you get over, his face and head appear to be free of the older spiral scars, and lying in a pool of blood beneath the corpse, you can see he has seemed to have fallen or crumpled down on top of it, is an obsidian blade, jet black stone. Now, that's what you see as you go over there. Would you give us a first aid roll, please?
I think as she bends down to check, she's like, James, what have you done? First aid.
You can feel free to draw on the bookstore owner as well for expertise or questions. I think you were doing a careful study of this as well. Why don't you give us a bonus roll or bonus dice roll? Okay.
Ooh, no help.
So no, I mean, apart from the obvious, the gashes and the likely source of all the blood, there's not really much else you can tell about him.
Right. Yeah, I don't know things like self-inflicted or anything like that. I'm guessing even with a crappy roll, I can tell if he's breathing or not.
He is most definitely not breathing.
Yeah. So then I would turn to Arthur and I would say, "Is it James?" I'm certain of that, right?
It most certainly is.
Yeah, it is James, and I'm afraid he is dead, Mr. Riley.
He's still sort of, crumpling that hat of his in his hand. And then he sort of, catches and he says, "Is the book with him? Is there a book there?" I think you said that you saw a piece of paper that's there, but not the.
Yeah.
There's no book there.
I don't see the book, and I think that I would like to take control of the scene, and I would like, sort of quickly then look around the room more, like, like check the table, look along the walls, like check the sleeping area. Like I would like kind of not let Mr. Riley look around too much. I would want to stay in control of that.
Okay. So what I'll say is just if you're inspecting the...
Yeah, like I'll scan for his book because I kind of want Mr. Riley... I'm hoping that by finding the book, it puts him in a calmer mood, a calmer state of mind, and he can be more rational to help me.
There is one thing that does sort of come to mind, just as someone who has rented to individuals, and maybe just because of your relationship or your imagined relationship with Mr. Gardner. But the tarpaulin, the candles, and the piece of paper, as well as most of the rest of the room, are spattered with dried blood. But the wax tarpaulin has protected the fine oriental rug underneath there. Which means you would not need to spend a substantial amount of time cleaning after this event.
Right.
A curious bit of...
I think like her
courtesy.
mind, like it kind of goes to that, and it's almost like, that was kind of him. Like maybe she even sees it as like one of these sort of messages only to her. Like this was part of his way of love for her, right?
Yeah.
Whatever he was into, whatever crazy shit this is, he took the time to protect the room, which was sort of like him protecting me, right?
Absolutely. There is also something curious.
Yeah. So there is...
This is that note that's sitting in the middle.
Yes.
This is what you see.
Oh, there's writing on it.
Yeah,
there's
okay. Writing on it. But that is not a language that you recognize whatsoever. Except for... Looks like there's... Well, maybe that's not English, but... What do you make of that?
I think that she would assume it's a language she does not speak.
You are, in passing conversations with Mr. O'Reilly, he has mentioned in passing before his proficiency with a variety of ancient and obscure languages.
Oh, so then I think this is actually... So like I said, I was going to kind of scan the room for his book.
Yep.
I'll get him to come over and look at this. So I'll be, Mr. Riley, there's an interesting note here. Could you come and take a look at it? So that while he's reading it, I can sort of scan the room.
Sure. Then here, I'll put him to the back.
Yeah.
Boom.
I'd kind of like to find his book before him.
Absolutely. Why don't you give us give us a spot hidden check, and then I'll ask you to read what Mr. O'Reilly's translation is in a moment here.
Okay. Oh, terrible.
So because you're doing it quickly, I'm not going to let you...
I am doing it quickly, yeah.
So here's what you could do. You could push it, but if you fail, then something bad happens.
Oh, yeah, let's push it because bad shit's funny. And it's just me trying to find his book before him. So,
and it makes sense that if something bad might happen here as you're sort of like quickly trying to look around.
Yeah. Here we go. Come on. Go.
Hell!
Oh, it's terrible.
So you could spend luck. I mean, that is 30.
That's like a lot of my luck.
Yes, 34 luck you'd be blowing.
No, I think it's more interesting if it's like he sees this ruse.
One neat thing with the luck in this as well is that you often, like sanity, luck is a stat you'll roll at certain times, and it's usually to determine who in the party something bad happens to. So, like, the more fast and loose you are blowing your luck, the lower it gets. So the greater likelihood of something bad befalling you is increased.
Right, so if we were playing as a party, I might actually want to spend like 34 luck right here to succeed.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then at the start of each session, you gain a chunk of luck back as well. So every
Right.
session you get more luck back.
That's interesting.
Okay, so you were looking around, and I think what you do is you stumble on Mr. Gardner's feet, and you sort of stumble forward and and hit the bookcase. You're not heavy enough to knock it over by any means, but it's enough to knock a couple things off that kind of hit the floor.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think you quickly gave a quick glance over at this stuff here. Am I on the right layer? I am. Over here, and then you sort of tried to step across to look in his room.
Like, oh shoot!
Whoop, poof. So here is, and I'll ask you to read this aloud. Here is what Mr. O'Reilly reads aloud. What he tells you at the outset is, this is ancient Greek.
And then this is what he says. He reads it aloud?
He does, yeah.
Okay. I call upon Yog Sothoth?
Yog Sothoth.
Yog Sothoth.
It's a Lovecraftian names, they're the best.
To hear my request, the gate and the key. This vessel has been prepared. Empty this body. Transport my will. Prepare the way to dreams. La Yog Sothoth. Sothoth? Open the gate.
So, and maybe hearing that is what sort of causes you to stumble.
Yeah, he starts reading it, and it's like,
And what he says is, "Oh, Mrs. Jones, are you all quite? Oh no," and he quickly kind of looks at you and then sees the books on the ground and immediately leaves you and runs, over to some of the fallen books.
Yeah. Okay.
So he heads over here. Let me make a quick spot hidden for him. Okay, he did do quite well. He says, there! And he runs over to the... Hold on, I'm trying to remember which book it was he borrowed here. Oh, several books, actually.
Oh, it's actually a few.
Yeah. So he comes over and he says... there it is. There's, he runs over to the nightstand. The Dreamer's Dictionary. Good. Anna didn't like that. And then he sees some of the books that have fallen off the bookshelf, and Myths and Legends of Ancient Greece and Rome, and Freud's The Interpretation of Dreams. Now, where is the primer in Greek vocabulary?
Now, for certain knowledge stuff, Kev, do you want me to roll to see if Eloise knows, or do I just make up that certain things she might know?
What are you thinking of?
Well, for example, the police, like now that it seems like there's a dead person here, Eloise thinks, I'm going to have the police in. It's whether she would think to tell him to not remove anything from the scene until the police have seen.
Most definitely. You could tell him that it's 1931 forensics, though. So
no, and I understand that, but the truth is, Kev, is that Eloise has a little bit of suspicion of Arthur,
of Mr. O'Reilly, yeah,
of Mr. O'Reilly, that he may somewhat be involved. One, he can read this strange writing, and two, his books seem to maybe be a catalyst for what has occurred here.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that any police inspector that is sent can, this is my love who's dead, and if I think that that Mr. Riley could be partially responsible, I want him to be paid for what has happened.
Okay. Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking. So I think I just wanted to check, would she know to say something like, yeah. I think now that he's taking notes of his books, then if she knows that, she would speak up and say, I don't think you should be removing any of those books, Mr. Riley, until the police inspector has been around.
He kind of looks back. He says, "What do you mean? Surely this has nothing to do with whatever's happened to him, this horrific event."
it's all potentially connected. I wouldn't want to have to tell the police inspector that you have tampered with his scene.
Ooh, so let's see here. Why don't you give us an intimidate roll here?
And I think do not have much intimidate.
I think
on
you've
this
got
character.
a bonus on this just because, I mean, like, he clearly has. He was.
I do.
Do you? Okay.
I'm good at intimidate.
Extreme success. Wow. So it is like your full-on mom tone of, like, you know, Mr. O'Reilly. So he sort of stops and, you know, looks at the stack of books in his hands and looks back, you know, at in the direction of the body and says, "Of course, of course." And he carefully sets everything down on his bed.
If you make a list of the names of the books that belong to you, I will make sure that they are returned to you after the police have been by.
Yes, of course. I am. I'm happy to do so. And he puts the down. He says, "Oh, but I suppose I could just look." And he sort of pulls the nightstand out. And he says, "Oh, that's curious." And he pulls out a book that you don't recognize. It looks, honestly, it doesn't look like one of the others where there's a clear title on the front and there's a clear, you know, some markings or a title on the spine of it. This is a slim journal, it looks like. And he opens it up and kind of flips, you know, a little bit through here.
I would come over and sort of over his shoulder. What have you found?
Oh, he's still lingering, you know, scared of you and your tone. So he looks back and says, It appears to me, Mr. Gardner's, he kept a journal of his dreams. So it'll only take about 5 minutes to sort of flip through this thing. And as he's doing and he's sort of reading aloud to you, what it reveals is that Gardner was obsessed, or at least obsessively writing about returning to a place called the Dreamlands. He was frustrated that he no longer seemed able to travel to this place while asleep. Entry after entry is filled with frustration, or simply reads, "No dreams again." Then, towards the end of the journal, there are numerous descriptions of vivid dreams where Gardner talks about meeting a powerful being who has promised him a path into the land of dreams if certain rituals are performed. In addition, Gardner describes how his dreams make a text he calls the tome more understandable. Do you have any points in occult?
5 points.
Yeah, give us a roll. Let's see.
No.
That is a big fat no. You could push it if you'd like.
No, I don't think this is something that she would be.
Yeah, the consequence would likely be a sanity check if you were, you know, if you failed on pushing it. So what he looks back at you, having sort of flipped through it and read this stuff out, and he adjusts the glasses, you know, up from the bridge of his nose once again. What do you make of that, Mrs. Jones?
It seems to me that our poor Mr. Gardner was more troubled than any of us knew.
So if you look over the bookcase, you can see that it has been finely carved, has glass fronted doors carved into the upright moldings that support the doors on either side. And on either side there are busts of 2 flute-playing cherubs. The doors have been sort of knocked open and then came closed again with the books falling. There's a drawer at the bottom of the unit as well, which is often used to store, bedding.
Yeah.
These are not very big places. On the shelves, there are books on finance and booking, and a few travel books for obscure places, as well as some other occult books in addition to the ones. And you can see Mr. O'Reilly is looking through them. The top shelf does not have enough books to fit on it or to fill it, so there has been a bookend that's been used to keep the books upright. But the bookend is a monstrous thing. Some sort of human-like squid creature made of a hideous green stone that seems to have almost like a slimy quality to it, an oily finish to the stone.
I think if he's looking at the books, I am sort of drawn to that, and maybe I would pick it up to examine it.
Okay. It is, so when you touch it, it feels cold and slimy, and there is a slight tingling sensation. Would you give us a sanity check, please? Nice. No sanity loss whatsoever.
Nice.
When you touch it, you briefly have a vision of an underwater scene where indistinct and gigantic dark forms provoke a sense of dread. But it's gone so quickly that you almost seem convinced that you imagined the whole thing altogether.
Right.
You're able to pick it up. It's very heavy. Like, this is, a solid, 60, almost 70 pounds. As you sort of pull it along, what do you want to do with this thing?
Well, what I just wanted to examine it closely.
Okay. You could just, if what your intent was just to look at it, you could have, kind of moved it to the side and then just inspected it. Yeah. It is why don't you give us a history or archaeology check? Whichever one's better is fine. I don't think you're super skilled in either of them, but...
No, my archaeology's a 1. Where's history? Oh, there it is. Oh, that's a 5. It's a little better. Oh, I was close. Oh, so, can I spend luck?
You absolutely can spend luck. That's only 8 luck.
Yeah, that seems like a perfect opportunity to...
Okay.
That is 47 left.
So it may have been... What did you say your late husband did?
I was imagining that he worked for Mr. Shanks, and that's how we've... once he passed away, then Ma Shanks sort of, took me and Tommy in and gave me this job as the landlady to sort of help us out, knowing that,
okay,
I was a widow here in the city.
So what, I think...
what Mr. Shanks did, we could make up, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that maybe it's your in-laws. What Shanks, they're actually from, or your husband at least was originally from New Orleans. And they moved north from there. But what you heard one dark night, your father-in-law talked about because he was in law enforcement. He talked about a dark cult that was found deep in the Louisiana swamps. And it was said that the altar before which they prayed when they were taken in for their blasphemous and unholy rites was something shaped like a vaguely, cephalopod humanoid thing made of a stone that none could identify. I think while you have been looking for, your like new love, as it were.
Yeah.
You very acutely feel the loss of Mr. Jones at this point. Yeah, the way your father-in-law described seeing that horrific thing and how it made him feel when he was deep in his cups that one night, and when he told you in that thick Louisiana drawl.
I'm oddly attracted to this thing. And I think it runs through her head sort of the thought of like, you know, James would have wanted me to have this.
Okay.
And it's like sort of like I should keep this as a memento. And like she's almost like plotting like, you know, after the police have examined the scene, you know, when I'm cleaning out the room, I'm going to take this thing, like kind of like.
Yeah. Are you thinking of like to keep it as a keepsake or to sell it?
Yeah. No, as a keepsake.
As a keepsake. Yeah. Okay.
Like to remind me of James. Like you know, I don't have anything. He's dead. He'll be gone, and it's like this seems to be like his most valuable personal possession that I've found or seen in the room, and. You know, like this backstory is where like she's in love with him and she felt like he was secretly in love with her too, but nothing ever happened. You know, that's why in her mind she's like, James would have wanted me to keep this.
Would you give us a luck roll, please?
Luck. Oh, that's this year. Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
So you're standing before this thing, and you can picture you're having to stand kind of right before it. You realize as you're getting in so close to study this thing so carefully. It seems almost like, and this clearly can't be the case, but it's almost as if this thing was freshly taken out of the salt water of the ocean. It has even that briny smell that you recognize when you and your husband went down, you know, on vacation to Atlantic City, down by the boardwalk. The smell of the sea.
And I think the fact that it kind of reminds me of my deceased husband as well is like making me more drawn to it.
Okay. And as you step forward, your foot hits up against the bottom of the case, and you hear kind of something clicks, and you look down, and there is a secret compartment that you seem to have accidentally kicked open.
I'll bend down and see what I have.
Okay. You go down and you have to sort of pull the thing out. It's obviously like it's an older secret compartment, and it doesn't seem to be terribly well, you know, whatever hinges it goes on, it doesn't like pop out quite easily, but you are able to pull it out. And within there is a couple things. There is a book, and you can hear Mr. O'Reilly say, "What is it you found there, Mrs.?" "Ah, there it is. A primer in Greek vocabulary." And Mr. O'Reilly collects that quickly and in a kind of a treasured way. There are also 2 accounting ledgers within there, as well as receipts. There is another obsidian knife, identical to the one that you saw underneath Mr. Gardner's crumpled form.
Yeah.
And there is something wrapped in silk cloth, a book perhaps, or a low box.
I will take a look at it.
Okay. So you reach down and pick the thing up. It almost falls away unbidden, the wrapped cloth, revealing... Let's see here. I'm seeing what language this is in. There is something on the cover of this, but it is in that same language that you saw before. Why don't you give us another history check? I'm just seeing if you can judge how old this book is.
No.
You could push it, or you perhaps you do have a kind of a expert in books here.
Yeah, I think I'd be more likely to let Arthur see it than to try and push my own knowledge of it.
Okay.
What do you make of this old book, Arthur?
He seems to be quite pleased with looking through, and he's tut-tutting at as he's flipping through this primer, and he seems like, he's writing in the book. He looks over, and his eyes get big, like bigger than what his glasses are. And he quickly places his primer down on the ground, and he comes over and he says, "What have you found there?" The book itself seems to have be bound in cracked and worn leather, and it's quite frail, and there does appear to be a bookmark that's been placed in the book. He takes a look at this, studies the cover, and he says, it's Greek. Again, the Book of Dream Memories. And he puts his hands out, if I may, madam?
And I hand him the book.
So he takes it and he places it down on the bed between you two, so you have an opportunity to look at it as well. He pulls it open. This is the 1658 edition of a book originally written by an Irish monk in the 19th century of the Common Era. And it, and as he's paging through the introductions, it seems to be something the monk claims to have. It's it's descriptions of dreams that he experienced after reading some ancient scrolls discovered while cleaning out the monastery's library. He looks over and kind of turns the light on near the nightstand just to make it easier to see in here.
Yeah.
And he looks through. Would you give us a percentile roll? Let you make the roll for him.
Percentile. Oops. Let's do this.
Okay. This is, and as he's sort of flipping through this thing, the writing in here is most confusing. Much of it is written in allegory, or I assume in allegory. It seems that the writer, this monk, spoke of making regular visits in his dreams to a place he called the Dream Land. It's much like
the same one you mentioned in James's journal.
Indeed. It suggests that the writer was having dreams in which they were reading a dream book. And, I see here. It appears as if sections of this, the Book of Dream Memories, were efforts to try and write down what was read in this dream book.
Interesting.
He turns towards where the bookmark is very carefully in this ancient book. And he says, in here, the bookmarked section, it appears to be instructions. Instructions on how to enter the dream realm. Mrs. Jones, would you be so kind as to collect the note that was in front of Mr. Gardner's body?
Yeah, sure. I'll go back and get the note.
Would you give us a listen check, please?
While I roll this, I'm just going to fill up my water.
Sure.
Need 2 seconds. As soon as I find listen.
That's actually not a bad idea. Oh, and you make your listen, and then we'll run over. I just need to run over. Look at that!
Oh, nice,
beautiful. So you get over there. What I'll tell you just before you walk away is, as you reach down to grab the note, you pick it up and you hear from Mr. Gardner's body.
A grumbling sound,
almost like a difficult exhale. And we'll see what that portends in just a moment here. I'm just going to run out. Yeah, I'll grab water. I'll be right back. Good girl. Okay. Anna says hi, by the way.
Of course she does.
She's following me back in. She was very disappointed that we didn't go to the backyard.
Yeah. Well, just a little bit longer, Anna.
So, would you kindly give us a sanity check again?
Yes. Okay.
Put you over here. So you cannot spend luck on a sanity point check, and you can't push it. So, would you give us a 1d4 roll, please?
No.
So you only lose 2 more sanity.
Well, that's just because she was certain he was dead.
Yeah. So you look over, and if you want to, I guess, what do you do? What do you do when you hear that sound? It's definitely from his body. You have the note in the blood spattered note in your hand now, written in that blasphemous language.
Yeah, I think that she wouldn't be afraid of things like, like you said, like forensics, or she wouldn't know things like you shouldn't touch the bot, like moving him or whatever wouldn't be a fear she has. So maybe she kind of would back up, because she doesn't want to mess up the blood, though, even though it's kind of dry. She doesn't want to touch it. So she would maybe kind of use his leg or whatever to try and roll the body onto its back.
Okay. Because
you said his shirt is open.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you sort of push the body. It slumps over with the one arm, his right arm, across his body, goes across onto the back, and you can see his shirt falls more open, and you realize that the scarification you saw on his hands of the small spirals, it covers the entirety of his chest that you can see. You sort of look, study the corpse of him, and you realize that almost I guess as the foot or the legs fall over too, I think one of the pant legs comes up, and you can see on his legs, same thing. It's almost like his body must be covered in this stuff, in these small spiral scarification.
And now that he's on his back, I look closely to see if his chest is rising and falling or his stomach is moving.
Sure. Give us a spot hidden check, please.
Here we go. Oh!
So you could... you're taking your time, so give us a bonus check as well.
Yeah, even though... Oh!
55. You want to spend 10 luck?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay.
It's a one shot.
So you are studying this. I can tell you that there is nothing, there is nothing, no movement in his chest. It's not moving up and down.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is that as it rolls over, you can see the from where sort of I'm trying to think how you would see this. It seems as if the wound from where his hands fell, they must be self-inflicted.
And I think with that thought that this is he's killed himself.
Yeah.
That's extremely troubling to her, and she doesn't want to think about that, so she's going to now rush over with this note that Arthur asked for.
Okay.
Sort of leave this scene, because she's
sure.
That's traumatic, right?
Yep.
Someone you love has killed themselves. It's
okay.
That's horrible.
So you make your way over, and there's so much blood and the carving of the spirals in his head and this vicious slash across his neck. It almost doesn't seem like the man you knew. if it wasn't for the clothing. So you bring it over, and Mr. O'Reilly says, I thought as much. You see, where the bookmark was placed, the writing on the scrap of paper is the same as in this book. And as he sort of flips the page over, you see the next thing. There is this manual duplicates some of the illuminated plates that are in the original Irish manuscript. And what you can see is a detailed illuminated description of ritual scarification with spiraling caused by knives, loops carved into skin. It's identical to the shapes that you saw scarred on Mr. Gardner's body and freshly carved into his head and neck.
He thought what he was doing would take him to this dreamland. Must have been a place that made him very happy.
He seemed quite desperate to reach there indeed. But this is madness, surely.
Surely.
And
he read these.
At that, you hear the sound of something being dragged across the ground. And from where you're standing next to the bed, you can't quite see what is happening because the bookcase is in the way. But if you move to the edge of the bookcase to try and see what's happening, you see in a jerky and almost spasmodic way one of Mr. Gardner's legs kind of twitches to the side. And then you see where that foot is, because you can picture he's rolled over on his back.
Yeah.
Both of the legs begin dragging, the heels going across the tarpaulin, kind of pulling it back. They're pulling it up as if the knees were going to a crouched, like the feet were dragging towards his butt to try and stand. Would you give us a sanity check, please? Success. Only 1 point of sanity lost. So you're holding it together like a champ. Seeing this, and what are you doing?
Well, I think that part of the reason she's holding it together is she's like, James, and she'll like come around thinking he's not dead. Like,
and what you can see,
she's misseen this all.
Yeah.
You know, like it's hope, right?
Mr. O'Reilly says, "Wait, what? Mrs. Jones, wait!" And you race around the corner, and what you see is this thing. Pulls its, like, the hands have been pulled to its side. It pulls itself up, and Mr. Gardner looks up at you, and then he, for a split second, it's almost like it's him once again, and a smile, goes across his face, which is just horrific, and with all the gore and whatnot. And then you see, starting with the top, the flesh begins to fall away in lumping spirals, revealing the horror underneath. Now, the way that I think Mr. O'Reilly runs around the side as well. Let's give a quick. Yes, 80. That is a big fail on his part. He just screams. And he is beginning to just babble something in a language you don't understand. And just like as if it's some kind of protective thing, but he seems completely lost. So he will be not acting here. Now, the way that tactical rounds, like combat, is measured in this. As we compare the dexterity of the various parties, and there is an option to roll for initiative as well, but the easiest for this, we'll just use your dexterity. So what is your dexterity score?
50.
50. You were higher than the 35 for this creature that was James Gardner. So you get to act first. You could move, you can take an action. What would you like to do?
Her mind immediately flashes back to the other obsidian dagger that she saw in the drawer just on the other side of this bookcase.
Yeah.
And probably what she says is something like, "That's not my James," and she would go for the knife.
Nice. Okay, so you race over, and you can easily make your way over, and with that thing, unless you think that you may have taken it out of that.
I think it was still sitting in the drawer.
Yep.
It's probably still open because we were still in the middle of looking at the dream book when this all occurred.
So then, and I have a token for him, I believe, or I should say, it.
Yes.
So let me place that in here.
I imagine even though she's open to occult ideas and like she's not a 0 occult, right? She's got 5, so it's like she's more like a typical 1930s, like she needs to free James's soul, like from whatever is like that sort of like he needs to be finished off, whatever this abomination is. Killing it would like set James free so he can go to heaven instead of this dream land that he
absolutely
thinks he's, that kind of thought process.
Okay, so let me get there we go. Okay,
because I know like in the opening thing it said I would do anything to punish or stop whoever did something to James. Well, I think he did something to himself, and so
absolutely, that's awesome. That's a great use of the role-playing key for it. So this thing gets up, and then what you begin to hear is this strange, wet piping sound. It sounds like and it's clearly a awful, almost like a. I think you can picture like a combination sound of like a didgeridoo kind of, and like a flute, like a wooden flute or a pan flute. So it's got this like reverberating quality to it, but it's higher pitched than a didgeridoo. And what I need you to do is give us a power check, please.
Power. Is that like a main ability?
It's one of your stats. Power is sort of like your willpower, your magical power, stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
Okay. So it begins piping, as it gets up, but it does not prevent you from going over. Mr. O'Reilly is still babbling away in... actually, give us a 1d10 roll.
Yeah.
We'll see how long he is going to be caught in the grips of... so another 2 rounds. So then it is top of round 2. You're up. You got that obsidian dagger in your hand. What would you like to do?
I would like to push the bookcase over onto this form.
Yeah.
To give myself a chance to get in with the knife.
Sure. So I think it's going to be a hard strength check to push this thing over.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Do you have anything that you think might assist you to get a bonus dice out of this, or are you just going to...
Well, I think she will push off against the bed, like use the leverage of the the bed to help her.
My faithful co-DM is here. Go. Okay. So to get give us roll that bonus dice, because you are getting really good leverage. Okay, so your best roll is a 44 to get to a
25.
Yeah, 25. So that's what, 19 you need then?
Yeah, 19. Let's do it.
No, is that right? Or is it...
Yeah, 9 gets to 35 and 10 gets to 25.
Okay.
I'm gonna do it.
Okay, so and luckily you can see the that statue, that one that so caught your eye. It kind of slides to the back and adds a little bit more weight onto this, and it falls over, crushing down on this thing. Let me look at my DM screen. I'll give you how much damage you'll do to this thing.
Mostly, I'm trying to pin it so that I can get in there with the obsidian dagger and and like stab it without it grasping or stabbing at me.
Anna Banana, I don't want to worry you, is currently licking the front of my Cults of Cthulhu source book. Hey? Cthulhu Vatagan. Yeah, good girl. Good girl. Okay, Cthulhu approves. So you will do... And there's also now look at my DM screen. Here we go. Forms of damage. Give us a 1d10 roll. No. 2d10 roll.
Oh, come on. Big money. I'm guessing this you want bigger numbers.
You want bigger numbers. Yeah, so just flat out damage. This is a fact you rolling here.
Oops.
Come on, big money.
I typed it wrong.
Oh, look at this.
Take this.
You hear that piping squeals out as it is pushed down and crushed.
Amazing.
Then it is this thing's turn, so I'll roll in chat. So I got to roll a percentile. Its strength is phenomenal. So I need a.
I'm imagining.
I think I need a extraordinary success on this, but its strength is like a 90. Yeah, so I just need to roll. I need to roll 23, 22 or less to throw this thing off of it. Holy shit!
Wow.
So, would you give us a dexterity check, please?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to jump out of the way. No!
Oh. Okay, do you want to push your luck?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Normally in combat you can't, but I'll let you try now because that'll be...
Just because it's fun.
Oh yeah, and it may like you're gonna take some damage, but if you fail, you'll actually be stuck as well.
Oh, did it do it? No.
Oh, nice! I love the push mechanic. It's a lot of fun.
It's weird that they would remove it in combat because I like it still because it has a consequence of failure, like a greater consequence.
Yeah, I think it's to avoid like NPCs can push
everything being rolled twice. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So what? And I mean, like, there are situations you can get boosts in combat. It's just the pushing your, luck. So this thing flies back towards you, but you easily able to, pull yourself back. But this thing is going to start, it's on the ground, but it is going to start rising once again. You can see that Mr. O'Reilly appears to have potentially soiled himself, and he still has not moved. It's you once again. What are you doing?
Okay, so it's like kind of like pushed back the other way now, right?
Yep.
So I imagine that I had to like jump on the bed to like avoid this thing falling on me.
Sure. Yep.
So what she's gonna do is like run down the back of the bookcase or slide down it or whatever looks like she can accomplish it and attempt to swipe at this thing with the obsidian dagger.
Okay, so I think just because you're running across the back,
so like whether it's sliding or running, I can't. It would depend on what kind of back this thing has, right? Like if it's solid wood, she would run on it. If it's like like your typical thin back thing, she might try to just
a dexterity check here.
Yeah.
I think just a regular success is all you need.
Oh my gosh! She trips.
This is I'll like it's in combat. What I mean by like not being able to roll in combat is that like it's the combat related stuff. So like attacks you can't re-roll, but you can re-roll. You can push that if you like. But that's.
Oh yeah. Why don't we push that? Because
love it.
We're trying to make this fight.
And when you push, you can't spend luck. Incidentally, you can spend luck on your first.
I don't have 25. anyway.
So there you go. Okay.
So it's push it or bust.
Oh, it's so close. So you're racing across, and then your foot kind of goes through one, and then you...
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining.
And you fall down, and almost like you're on the ground, and this thing is like looking at you on the ground, and its eyes kind of like... And what you saw as Mr. Gardner's eyes, James, your beloved James's eyes in there, they're still looking out from this horrific thing, but where you imagined at least his eyes being, full of tenderness and love towards you, albeit, poorly expressed, there's nothing but hatred in them right now. So then on his turn, I think he's going to try and get you. So here's what you can do. You can choose to either try and dodge, like get the fuck out of the way, or you can try and contest, in which case it becomes a contested thing. Whoever rolls highest does damage to the other person.
Yeah, see, that's more what I imagine. Well, I do know this thing is pretty crazy strong because I threw a bookshelf on it and it threw it back.
Yeah. What do you think?
Oh, it's a tough choice. I think she's going to contest it.
Nice. Okay.
So what, do we both roll an attack, or how does that work?
Yes, so you just go ahead and roll. I think with yours, what is it? Is it melee? I can't remember what it is. There's one of your... Oh,
there are... Okay, yeah, I see. Fighting, yeah. Brawling?
Fighting... You can use brawling. Oh, hold on. No, that's firearms. Is there anything under melee? Yeah, fighting skill 1, fighting skill 2. Okay, so then the base... If I recall from previous editions, what you do is you have there's like a base chance of success with certain weapons. I don't know if they carried that over into this edition, now that I think of it. But let's look it up. And then we won't have to look it up again. Anna's looking as well. Thank you, honey. Anna.
Oh, because like brawling is just like fighting.
Yeah, it's just, I believe, unarmed fighting.
Right, because like fighting skill 1 would be like if she could use a knife.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so skill for knife... Oh, it is brawling.
Oh, because I was going to say, like, 10 seems pretty low for an average person to just... The ability to stab another human
For sure,
being.
Yeah. So go ahead and give us a fighting check, and I'll roll my fighting check. Yeah, why don't I roll mine? I'll tell you what you need here. I actually failed. So long as you don't fail... or rather, more to the point, if you get a success on this, then you'll actually be able to damage it. Come on.
Okay, and if I roll a 12 or less, it's like a really good roll.
Yes, it's a crit.
Okay, come on. No! Roll 20.
I guess you don't have 28.
No.
Okay. So there's a bit of a back and forth. His claws come down. You sort of batter it to the side, and it hits the wooden back of the thing, and it drags it along, splintering the wood. And you try and stab him with your knife, but it falls short of him. They're definitely at an awkward angle and quite badly injured, it seems. But you miss. Then it is... but that was his turn. Mr. O'Reilly is still babbling away, so it's once again your turn. You're on your knees and you're engaged with this thing. What would you like to do?
So this thing is sort of over top of me now.
You're both sort of crawling on your knees. Like you fell down,
yeah.
And it never really got up. It just tried to crawl towards you and get you.
And like you said, like the description was that the flesh of James has fallen away.
Yes.
So what she's going to do is like, attempt to sort of stab this obsidian knife like through his rib cage into his heart.
Ooh, okay.
Like sort of the symbolism of like, get him in the heart, because that's like the love, right? Like, she's trying to finish him off.
When his body is quite badly damaged right now as well. Like that, you did a huge amount of damage when it crashed down on top of him.
I know, and I'm also kind of imagining like this unraveled flesh, like letting you kind of see the viscera underneath.
Mm-hmm. So
It's
give
like
us...
maybe she sees like his rib cage, like, you know, sees his ribs, like between those ribs is where she's going.
I was trying to find the... Sorry, the... where is it? The damage. I think it's 1d8 for the
Obsidian
knife.
knife.
Let me double check here. 1d6. 1d6.
1d6. Okay.
Okay, so then it's
So
contested.
he can do the same thing, right? He can contest
Exactly.
this? Yeah.
I got a success, regular success. If
Okay,
you get
here
a
we
regular
go.
success, attackers always win ties.
Okay, come
I
on,
think.
roll
Let me
20.
check at my... Where's my DM screen gone?
Come on, roll 20. Yeah!
Hard success!
success!
Beautiful. Give us a 1d6 damage. Roll, please.
Oh. Come on, roll 20. Right in the heart. Oh, it's something.
Let me show you. Take a look at that red bar on the thing. 2 left.
Ah, that's...
Do precisely that. You sort of push him so he rolls over on the side. You can hear like cracking as because his ribcage, or at least his body's ribcage, must have died. And you plunge this dagger down into it, and there's a single high note that the piping hits, and then silence in here. And would you give us a 1d6 roll, please?
Oh, another one.
Yep.
Oh.
You regain 6 sanity
Oh. Impressive.
from defeating this thing. So what do we see as we as our...
Oh, so she goes back to 60.
No,
Well,
you can go over. You can go over
you
your
can
starting
go
amount.
over. Oh, so... Sorry, I was at 56. She's at
56. You should be at 62.
2.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice. I think it is like the reason she's regained her sanity is like, and almost more is like she feels like she's released James from this trouble, right? Like from this horrible dream thing that he did to himself. She saved her love, right? She's,
So,
you know.
is she feeling triumphant? Is she sad?
Absolutely.
Is she...
Like, I think it's like, she sees now that like James was a troubled man and that things would not have worked out between them, but they did share this love, and you know, maybe it was a strange, special love, and she was able to sort of save him in the end because she loved him. Is how she would tell this story to people, her friends, whatever, you know.
Nice. So then, as the closing, here's the suggested closing here. So we leave this scene with you on the body, and then Mr. O'Reilly sort of finally coming to his senses and saying, Mrs. Jones? And over the following weeks, you piece together the truth of the situation. James Gardner enjoyed a vivid but fantastical dream life, but somehow lost his ability to dream. He sought occult solutions to regain those dreams and found a spell in a tome that he believed would open the way for him to return. Unfortunately, the spell and the book were cursed. Some strange entity from another world tricked Gardner into performing the rituals to be found in the tome. One prepared his body to become a vessel for the foul entity, while the other led to his death, sending poor Mr. Gardner's soul into oblivion. His empty body could then be possessed by the entity, as you discovered. Due to your timely actions, you can feel proud that you've played your part in foiling the schemes of a monster from beyond. But perhaps this incident has changed your investigator, which player characters are called in Call of Cthulhu. If there are dark and unwholesome things out there that wish to break into our world, will your steadfast investigator join the fight to stop them? And what is it that Mr. O'Reilly, who read that book, What is it that he's been saying at night? The busybody once again says he can hear someone speaking poems in a strange language. And the smell of incense or perhaps odd candles at strange hours of the night. Do you have anything you wish to add?
Yeah, I think that this would sort of, I see this whole thing ending with, like, you realize that, like, this was Eloise telling maybe one of the neighbors or someone else this story of this whole thing. And then as you sort of zoom out from this, you see, like, on a bookshelf in her room behind Eloise is that sea serpent thing that she was saying during that, like, James would have wanted me to have this.
Oh yeah,
you know. And so then, that thing is like on her bookshelf, holding up her books.
So maybe if I could add that, you know, it's maybe she's having tea with someone. They're like, "What a fascinating thing!" And just what a and the neighbor points at the thing on the bookshelf. Is like, "What a curious artifact." And Eloise may explain it away as like, "Oh, it's a old family heirloom."
Yeah.
And with that, we'll bring the dead border to a close. Before we do our outro here too, so Jeff, that was your first time playing a proper Call of Cthulhu non-pulp thing. What did you think?
That's really fun. I like it.
Like, it sounds.
I see how there's like some good hooks to like keep it going, or like have an investigator continue. Mm-hmm. I do see that there's a good chance that, you know, it's one of those games, almost like Blades in the Dark, where it's like you see the downfall of your character is coming at some point. So, like, the end of them, maybe you have to plan, not necessarily plan for it, but like be ready for them to either go insane or get killed or.
Well, the getting killed stuff is most definitely the case. But there are. There are things you can do like the expectation in the game is usually you're not going to fight unless you're playing in the pulp mode. You're usually not going to fight what you're doing. Like it's the investigation that's usually the gameplay.
Right, like she could have run away. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you face that thing solo as well too. I made no adjustments to its difficulty or anything like that.
Well, I mean, I thought that her justifications, like the character's justifications, made sense for her to try and fight it.
Absolutely.
Like, I see normally how she would have ran in terror, but I mean, she kept saving on her sanity checks.
Yep.
So it was hitting her like less hard than it could have.
Yep.
I think if I had failed all those, she probably would have ran. Mm-hmm. And, you know, even just left poor Mr. Arthur there.
Yeah.
Or Mr. Riley, like, just run away, right? Like.
And that's the neat thing I think about the game is that it's not like it's cool that you gain like by facing the things and defeating the things, like that's how you maintain your stability, by not convincing but proving to yourself that these things can be defeated, these things can be pushed back momentarily, however you know, ancient and primordial and whatnot they may be, they may come back in, you know, the lifetime of your descendants, but in your lifetime you can stand against them and can stabilize. There's also effectively therapy you can participate in between sessions or between adventures that will improve your sanity as well. So the spiraling loss of sanity is more often a focused part of the game you're playing. And then in the pulp rules, there's also a more it is less of a detrimental thing when you have your moments of sanity, insanity, or breaks with sanity at least. There are neat kind of like story things you can do during those periods.
Yeah. And I definitely see how there's some interesting ways this character could continue for sure. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I totally imagine that she's walking around now with that obsidian dagger in her handbag all the time.
Oh, you know? yeah. And like another neat thing they did, and again, I don't know if it was in the last edition I actually like owned and played before 7th was, I think, 5th edition. I can see it from here. I never owned 6th, so I don't know. But the whole thing of what you do now is if you your characters start off with the assumption that they don't believe in the supernatural. And then at some point, whenever you suffer sanity loss, you can choose where they suddenly become aware of like, oh, this shit's real, instead of rationalizing it away. And when they do, that opens the possibility of them becoming magicians and being able to study these tomes and learn spells and shit like that, which are ways for you to deal with some of these creatures. And in particular in the pulp version, it's much more possible, especially if your character has a specific sort of pulp talent that allows them to access those spells more safely than the mad. The other thing is, I think like the whole environmental storytelling component is just is so much fun to play. Like seeing players piece together stuff from like handouts and stuff like that is just an enormous amount of fun. And playing online with, either loading in from PDFs or in these pre-made Roll20 ones, having those things like the Greek language handout for the note. I think that just adds to the reward and to the immersion of like looking around the room and here's what you specifically see here.
Yeah. And I really like having the drawing of the room, and that it made the exploration of it like easier to follow and
Yep.
think of what to do. Like the whole combat with pushing over the bookshelf, I think without that room drawn out the way it is, that would have never played out like that.
No, and it's neat because it's the way that Call of Cthulhu generally doesn't use like battle mats in it, but it does make use of maps, like hand-drawn maps, like kind of that. These are much nicer than the ones that we played with as kids, but it's precisely the kind of thing, because you need to be able to know situationally where you are and what things you can take advantage of.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I was curious, I was really excited to run this for you and to hear your thoughts on it afterwards, because you and I have talked about Call of Cthulhu before, and I know you've been reluctant to play because I feel like the popular sort of opinion of what playing Call of Cthulhu or Acton Cthulhu or any of them is just that like you're slowly watching your characters die. And it's definitely the suggested tone of like a game like Delta Green. Delta Green really enforces that. You don't have to run it that way, but that's the default tone. And I think Call of Cthulhu, even the default version in the 7th edition, it is a lot more calibrated to that long-term play than what short-term play is. And there's a reason why the game, Dungeons and Dragons has these mega campaigns as well, but Call of Cthulhu also has a couple ones that, are held up as legendary epic length campaigns. Where like there's one called Horror on the Orient Express, where you're following, not only are you following along this mystery that tracks all the way across Europe and into the Middle East, it also has scenes like chapters that take place in the past in different places. So you're actually playing like different characters and whatnot. And then there's another one that's a globe-trotting one called Masks of Nyarlathotep, which is similarly a globe-trotting investigation, but and characters can be lost in it, but the expectation is that you're going to be probably playing the same characters throughout the entire campaign. So it's not the sort of like attrition. I think that what the popular, or at least the sort of like stereotyped or caricatured version of a Call of Cthulhu campaign is.
Well, and I also think that if you sort of set the characters up well and you give them a good backstory and like stuff like Eloise is another good example. Like if this was my main character and we were playing this campaign and she did die, it would be interesting to then introduce like maybe it's been 5 years, like maybe it's 16-year-old Tommy, but Tommy now takes up her investigations because his mom was mysteriously killed.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you sort of have that next character kind of connected and in the wings, it can play out fine to be even with that danger all the time. Mm-hmm. Right? Because, that would be interesting, right? You play Eloise for a while, things going on, she does a few investigations, she does perish, and then all of a sudden Tommy joins because he's like, mm-hmm. he was away at college, but now he's dropped all that because his mom's mysteriously vanished.
Exactly. It's great. Like, I think it's we've now run everything out of Gateways of Terror. How did you feel the adventure acted as an introduction to the game?
Good. And I actually really, it's hard to make games that are, hour and a half, 2 hours long and really feel good. And this was well done. And I enjoy this length, especially for our Friday games, to be honest with you, because, we're always so tired on Friday nights, and getting a chance to game, but have like a nice game, is just going to sort of be done in that time period is good. I like it.
It's also character creation is also fairly quick in the game as well too. So even if you don't have pre-gens, which one of the trends in the game is for a lot of adventures to have pre-mades with them that link in with the campaign. So some of them are more flexible than others, like especially the long-term campaigns. They're not quite as strongly keyed in for one specific set of characters, but it does mean, because the character creation is relatively short, it means also you can throw together a character and then play a quick, hour and a half, 2 hour investigation.
Right.
And see a satisfying close to it. There's the longer ones too, but even those are also parsed out in a good way so you can get satisfying. It's like a procedural, right? Like a long-running procedural where like each episode you're getting to see a little bit more uncovered about your whatever it is you're investigating.
Well, and Kev, I love characters like Eloise, who isn't a doctor or a police officer or like she's just a landlady or whatever, but like she does have skills, but she has more like every person skills. Mm-hmm. And it would be fun. Like I would totally enjoy playing a character who starts out as Eloise is now, and then slowly morphs into whatever she becomes from doing all these investigations. Like I said, like maybe she's keeping that obsidian knife, and maybe I train up her knife skills a bit, like.
Well, you used it successfully. So again, like what we'd do is we would roll against the the skills that you used. You'd roll a D100, and you'd really make a skill check. If you fail the skill check, then you add, I can't remember what it is. Actually, I'll tell you what it is because I can look it up very quickly here.
Right. So I used fast talk. It's anything you did successfully. What was your one that was at 5?
Right? That was the one that was really surprising. Talk. Fast talk. Right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Wasn't it? No, history?
Oh yeah, it was. Was it history?
I think it was fast talk because I convinced him. Yeah, it was fast talk. I told him to leave the crime scene the way it was or something. Oh, no, that was when I intimidated him. I can't remember. But it was fast talk. I rolled a 5. Yeah.
So here's what we would create backstory.
So you don't do the same for your attributes, though, correct?
You do not, except for your... not for your attributes, though. Although...
Do your attributes ever change?
I can't remember.
Oh. But your skills do, which is the important part.
Absolutely, because that's really what you're using for the most part throughout the game. I think they can change. Okay, where the heck is it here? It's chases. Like, it tells you a lot about what isn't the intended fight. And like a lot of things you're often fighting, you're not like fighting, unless it's a pulp version, you're not playing like fighting monsters every single session. What you're doing is you're often facing like cultists or dangerous circumstances or gangsters or things like that.
I do like that intimidation is one of her best skills.
It's pretty great.
And I like that she's like, it's like, yeah, you can play it as not like the tough guy intimidate. It's more like your mom is telling you what to do, and people respect it, right? It's like,
okay,
it's fun. So basically, I would roll brawl. Okay, so I rolled under it, so I would get like 2 points or whatever the small number is.
Let me find it because I've talked about it in 2 sessions now.
And then I would roll fast talk. Yeah, and I rolled a 98, so then it would get
so you definitely
the big
would.
bonuses. Yeah. Interesting.
we go playing the game 182.
And I mean, that's why it's got the radio buttons on all of the. Well, there's some that don't have, so those obviously you can't increase
without success.
Oh, like credit rating and Cthulhu.
Oh,
Cthulhu knowledge.
Cthulhu Mythos you
things.
only gain from exposure to it. But what the Cthulhu Mythos does, the more you learn about the mythos, the lower your maximum sanity becomes. So if you have 25% in the Cthulhu Mythos, that means you know a fair amount. You've got a chance of knowing stuff when, like about the creatures you face or the entities that the cults you would be facing worship. But it also means that you know more about the true horrific nature of the world, and you're more prone to madness. Okay, pacing the game, perception. Scaring players. Where the heck? I cannot seem to find it.
Interesting.
It's all about that. Okay.
Right,
well,
so anything that you succeeded on skill-wise, you get the roll on.
Yeah, you would get to roll on, and I just don't remember how much you add.
But not ones that you added luck to succeed, correct?
I do not know.
Okay. It doesn't matter. It's just curious. I mean, if we play it, we'll make sure we know before we...
Yeah, when we get off, I'm going to look that up before I go prep for discoveries. But let's see here. I'm going to check one more section here. Chases. Yep, that's sanity. Odd that I've got that marked, eh? Magic. And Eldritch Tomes. Well, I'm really... The other thing I thought that... I always sort of thought that you would enjoy about this game is how, you improve by using stuff.
Absolutely, I love that. Like the radio buttons, and that's what you roll on. Yeah, that's like my favorite way to play, because you kind of are choosing how you play your character is how you get better at those things, and what happens matters. Like I successfully intimidated that guy, so make an intimidation check. Oh, I
extreme success.
Yeah, so it probably wouldn't go up, but like. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I see what you mean.
I succeeded on my listen, which I'm not great at.
No, and I like that. That's sure, link to players. Here we go. Yeah, there's great stuff with what do you call it? Like great suggestions for incorporating like backstory and linking characters and introducing new characters as well. Let's see here.
Yeah, and that's something that like I guess would be a good way to play this too. An interesting way is have the players make multiple characters and like have their main character that they're playing, but then like have the characters, their backups or whatever, sort of pre-made so that you as a DM can always use and or introduce them to the game over time, so they've been seen a few times, and then it's kind of interesting to the player too. Like there's a little moments where you're like your backup character appears, but nobody else necessarily knows that's Eloise's backup, if you know what I mean. Like,
well, it gives you
the
a chance
doctor that shows up or whatever. It's like,
because you're not getting like XP and stuff. It gives you a chance to try and try out different things too. Have a change of scenery without necessarily going. Okay, here we go. So during development, what you do, you make your skill check. If the current skill is, if you roll higher than the current skill number and the result is 95. Or the result is over 95, you improve the skill by 1d10. You roll that and you immediately add that to your current skill in that current rating in that skill. Cool. If you rolled equal to or less, you haven't learned anything significant, so you don't increase the skill. In addition, during a downtime, you have the opportunity to reduce sanity limits, so you can get used to awful shit. You can use credit rating to review your finances, and you can gain sanity points through your investigator spending time with one aspect of your own backstory. So in your case, like perhaps you went on a vacation with Tommy, you took him down to the seaside, maybe you went to visit your relatives in New Orleans or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And then when you get 90% or more, if you get your skill up to 90% or more, you automatically add 2d6 points to your current sanity. So that's another thing that sort of potentially improves your character and keeps you treading water, as it were. If your skill goes above, you get a skill to 90 or more, you get to add 2d6 sanity to yourself.
Cool. So my spot hidden was the other one that I succeeded, and my psychology. So close. So in this case, my listen would go up by 1d10, and my fast talk would go up by 1d10.
Yep.
That's cool.
And that's with each session, I believe, not with each adventure. Hi, honey.
It makes sense because, I mean, like you see here, I'm gonna get, not that huge of a
no, and it really
change.
And it smooths out too. You either get lucky, which is great, and you get to improve it significantly, or you just you keep on at whatever level you're at.
And my fast talk would go up to 9, and my listen would go up to 24. Yeah,
great.
Like it's not a big difference percentage wise, so it's I like it.
And then when you get there's a chance to try that again, and if you succeed, then great, you get to make another skill check. And because your score is still not super high, your chance of succeeding and improving is good.
Yeah.
So awesome stuff. Well, again, I'm thrilled to hear you have such it was a good experience for you. I knew that I knew that you had your reservations about Call of Cthulhu, but I'm glad to see that the actual play that you had a positive experience with it. I can't tell you how happy that makes me.
It's hard to change my long-term view of it because we'd have to play a little campaign or something to see how.
Well, we've got George saying that he loves Call of Cthulhu in chat.
I know.
So
he always wants to get into these kind of games.
Yes.
Yeah, we could definitely play this. I'd be into it.
That's awesome to hear. Because I definitely I was talking to the guys. Like it's interesting. I love a lot of the more narrative focused horror games we've played, like Act of Cthulhu and like Cult. They're terrific games. The thing that I enjoy about Call of Cthulhu, and I've been reminded of by running these, is how fun atmospheric storytelling is.
Right.
Or environmental storytelling is, where it's by you interacting with the environment, be it the immediate environment or going out and meeting with cults or doing investigations in newspapers or whatnot. That's the kind of stuff that's really interesting, and the kind of pre-made. We've talked about today quite a bit on the Discord channel about or last couple of days about managing sessions where you don't have everyone there. This is not the kind of game where there's a shit ton of combat encounters that need rebalancing when you don't have people there. If you don't have players there, you just play with who's there, and then they do they enjoy the majority of the spotlight as the investigations are going on.
Right. Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and you can add in NPCs if need be, because they're relatively simple to manage, like we did with Mr. O'Reilly. If he hadn't, gone temporarily stunned by seeing that thing, I would have let you make attacks with him as well. Unfortunately, it broke his mind.
Right? Yeah, totally.
So, awesome.
I mean, it was a freaky thing. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, what a creepy thing to see. Then, for those listening at home, any closing thoughts on Call of Cthulhu, Jeff?
I'm willing to play some more. That would be my closing thoughts.
That is awesome. Then, for those listening at home, thank you so much for joining us for this Tale of Terror one-shot, The Dead Border. As you've heard, we've got nothing but good things to say about this stuff. So, both the book or the Roll20 module for it are terrific. I think they're like $20. So, $20 for 3 hours, or depending on how long it takes you, 3 to 5.5 hours of gameplay. Really fun introductions, particularly for new keepers or new players. As is always the case, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the game, the session, or the our experience with Call of Cthulhu, please don't hesitate to leave a comment in the comment section down below, and I'll endeavor to reply in a timely fashion. In addition, you find a link down below to the Dungeon Musings Discord server, and while we don't have a channel there dedicated to Lovecraftian RPGs, I suspect we're going to have one pretty soon. In addition, there is a link down below to something called Heroes Save Villages. That's the charity fundraising campaign that we run on the channel. It benefits the SOS Children's Villages International Charity, a really terrific organization active in over 130 countries, benefiting over 80,000 orphan and abandoned children, including ongoing relief efforts in Ukraine and the surrounding countries. For every $25 Canadian that you donate through that link, all of which goes directly to the SOS Children's Villages International Charity, you get one chance to win the grand prize or one of the other great prizes in our next charity raffle. In addition, if you want to see what the prizes were in our last charity raffle, you can head on over to the Dungeon Musings Discord server and find the Charity Initiatives channel, where we have a listing of all the prizes that were given away last time. Next raffle will be in December of 2022, and in addition to that, if you have donated since June 15, 2022, you can head on over to the Dungeon Musings Discord server's Charity Initiatives channel, and you can cast your vote for our next charity session, which I believe is at like September 6th, I think. It's a session playing Eden Studios' classic All Flesh Must Be Eaten zombie apocalypse RPG. Voting last week determined we're playing a modern day session, and voting is still going on until Sunday night for what specific setting we'll be playing in. The one that is leading the pack right now is an 80s session set in a mall, a shopping mall. And then next week, the voters will be casting votes for what types of characters we'll be playing. Are they everyday Joes? Are they teenagers? Are they kids? Are they shops, workers? Or are they something a cut above? Are they a SWAT team going in to try and investigate the thing? Or is there a supernatural aspect to our investigation? Voters will and donors will be determining all that stuff. So if you do want to have a say in what's happening in that session or any of the other charity sessions we're playing between now and the end of year, head on over to that donation link, make your donation. $25 or more gives you a chance, at least one, to win something in the raffle, as well as to vote in our charity sessions. The last thing I will say is and there's also a link down below to our friends at Noble Knight Games, the preeminent retailer of hard-to-find and out-of-print games in North America. If you purchase anything through Noble Knight's store and you when you're checking out if you purchase anything $10 or more at checkout, enter the code MUSINGS and you will save 10% in your purchase. I have filled many of my RPG collections from Noble Knight before they shared a discount code with us. And they have a terrific a tool or whatever, a feature where you can wish list games. So there are things that that are not in their already impressive out of stock inventory or out of print inventory. You can want list it and they'll let you know when it comes in, and you can snag it, and then you can enter the Musings code to save yourself 10% on the purchase when you check out. The last thing I'll say is a huge thank you to Jeffrey. Jeffrey, if he did have any reservations with this, did not have any, and happily said, hell yeah, when I suggested this is what we were going to do tonight. So Jeff, thank you so much for playing tonight and for giving Call of Cthulhu a try. And I can safely say that at least one book on my bookshelf has fully been used. We have run all of the adventures in that thing. Now just about 1,000 to go. So sounds good. Thank you, Jeffrey. And for those listening at home, thank you so much for joining us for us. We hope we gave you a couple of hours to take your mind off of the troubles of our world and think about the troubles that our stalwart investigator uncovered in the room of one of her boarders. And until we see you again, stay safe, stay healthy, and happy gaming.